Hey everybody, Dr. Joe is back in the house, and I hope your house is doing well because my house is doing fine. I had a great week again, as usual, and looking forward to sharing with you some good information today. We're going to talk about remote work and its impact on real estate investing. We all know that nowadays everyone's going virtual. Many people are full time virtual, and a lot of people are kind of hybrid, where they spend some days of the week working at home and several other days working from the office. And so I don't think that's a fad. I think it's for real. I don't think anything is going to change back to the old days where everybody has to commute 5 days a week. I think those days have passed, but I mean, we have to wait and see. The jury's out, as they say. But the reason, the bottom line is this: how does that change, that shift, affect you and I as real estate investors? So what if people are working remotely? Who cares? As real estate investors, does that affect us? Yes or no? That's what we're going to talk about today. And how are you going to adapt given that new realities? And should you shift in your real estate strategy in terms of what you buy, where you buy it, how you finance it, and the type of tenants that you're likely to attract, and what are those tenants looking for, where they're looking for rental properties? That's I think we need to know, and that's the reason why I want to kind of do a little more delving into today on that topic, real estate investing, and the impact for us as real estate investors. And should we change? Do we shift? Do we make any, adapt into that new environment and so on? Okay. Gonna be a little, different. It's kind of a follow-on to what I did last week. Last week, we talked about urban versus suburban real estate investing, the pros and cons, and why should you care? Why should you buy in urban areas? Why should you buy in suburban areas? And and so on. So so if you didn't listen to that one, check that out. It's a pretty good one. And but today we'll kind of take on from there and talk about the whole notion of remote work and how we as in real estate investors need to adapt to that new reality and so on. Okay, so I had a great week again. Yeah, it's a good week. So anything particular happened? No, all my tenants paid their rent, so that was good. And what else? It's been a good week. Nothing dramatic. A couple of tenant situations, but we're able to handle that and go on. So we're going to do a Q&A. Ask Dr. Joe. Towards the end of today's session. So if you've got any real estate related questions, please get them ready and feel free to put them in the chat box so I can answer them towards the end of today's session. Okay, so we're going to do Ask Dr. Joe, where you can ask all the questions you want, pick my brains, see if you can throw a curveball at me. There are a whole lot of scenarios I haven't seen. I've been doing this about 30, 35 years, so been there, done that for the most things. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. Okay, let's go. So the advent of remote work, especially with Zoom, WebEx, and a few other, Microsoft has some platform, Google Meet, and so on. The advent of technology and COVID has really resulted in, I think it's almost like a seismic shift in the real estate investing arena. Real estate prices shot up. So if you own properties in the last few years, I think you've done pretty good. If you haven't, well, hey, you haven't missed the boat, but interest rates were low and there was a good time to buy. But then again, it's always a good time to buy if you know what you're doing and if you can sort of ride out the storm until it comes back. So it's been a shift in the market. COVID really did make it have an impact. And one of the impacts is that people are now working more from home. There's more opportunities for remote work. A lot of companies before were kind of hesitant about allowing their employees to work from home, but COVID forced their hand and they had to adapt. And a lot of people liked it. A lot of employees liked it. A lot of employers, I don't know if they liked it, but it is what it is. And as a result of that, once post-COVID, we don't, that main issue with COVID kind of died down. A lot of employees prefer that. I know when I was working at IBM, I used to work remotely. This was 20 years ago, and I loved it. I got more work done from home than going to the office. I hated traveling on the beltway here around here, get stuck in traffic and get stressed out. I was able to avoid all of that by working from home. I loved it. I got twice as much work done from home than I did ever going to the office. So I think a lot of people feel the same way. And so I think it's more of a permanent shift, right? And so as real estate investors, I think we need to be aware of that and figure out what's the impact going to be for us. What's the impact for you? So today I'm going to kind of talk about that from a context of single family houses as opposed to multi-family houses. That's where my forte is. I tend to buy more in single family domain. So I'm going to kind of talk about it from that perspective. Obviously, there's an impact of remote work on commercial, office, industrial, multifamily, but today I'm going to focus on single families. Okay, and I'm going to explore the influence in the real estate markets that's happened, and hopefully I'm going to talk about some key considerations that you may want to factor in, when you decide to purchase your next future homes, and given the realities of where we are. Okay, so let's get to it. So remote work's influence on real estate. As I said before, as I talked about last week, it's been pretty profound. And we start off in what's it called? Shift in locations, preferences. There was a time where COVID, especially during the early stage of COVID, people just didn't want to be around other people, and so there was a movement away from the cities or multifamily where you're kind of clustered with lots of different people to real estate or a desire to be around fewer people and to be around more space and so on. So a lot of people moved out from the city and moved on to the suburbs because you got more space, you got larger properties, larger homes, you got outdoor opportunities, and quieter surroundings. That's what a lot of people were attracted to, and so there was a trend away from the cities and to the suburbans. Now that shift has kind of slowed down quite a bit, and so I'm not sure if the trend is going back again, but I know it definitely is slowed down in terms of the trends from the urban to the suburban. So, so what does that mean? And that means that if you're in the urban environment, hey, maybe there's a slower demand for your product. Now, I deal with Section 8, and, history tells me that my clients, Section 8 tenants, they're primarily, obviously it's a national program. And so there are in urban cities and also in suburban and also ex-urban places. But a lot of the times, I'm not experiencing a reduced demand for my product. If anything, it's probably increasing. There's a lot of condos being built, and I deal with 4, 5, 6 bedroom houses, or people with 4, 5, 6 bedroom vouchers, and there aren't too many 4, 5, 6 bedroom apartments. And when you have a family with a 4, 5, 6 bedroom voucher, my experience is that they want a house, and vouchers are usually issued by the local authority, housing authority, so they want to stay usually within that jurisdiction there. So I'm not seeing a real demand drop for people wanting my properties, but I talk to but I'm in the single family space in the city. I also have some properties in the suburban. I haven't seen too many reduction in demand there. So there has been a shift. But also, there's been also a shift to even rural places. Not so much for Section 8, but I think for a lot of professionals or people who are working, because now they can live in rural places and still get access to work through technology. So they're not tied in to the need to be close to the urban center or the urban core as before. So what does that mean? It's again, as it says on here. there's a shift in location preferences, and you need to be aware of that depending on the type of client base or tenant pool you're looking to attract. Okay. The other thing is that there's been sort of I would say a demand for dedicated workspaces. A place in a home where you can get work done. If you're going to be working from home, maybe you don't want to be, in the same room as the kids playing their video games. Maybe you don't want to be in the same room or the same space where someone's cooking dinner or where the TV is. You want dedicated workspaces where you can actually get some work done. Okay. And so there's a demand for that. So if you are buying properties, you may want to consider those things as well. I'm going to go into that a bit more detail later on, but I'm just kind of overviewing some of the changes that you need to be aware of when you purchase homes. And also, if you're going to do some upgrades to the home, you need to factor in these things. People are working remotely and therefore looking for certain things. Okay, so demand for dedicated workspaces, ample natural light, sound insulation, a place where you can do your Zooms without being sort of bothered by the TV or video games or background noise and things like that. The other thing is the demand for flexible living space. So there's dedicated workspace and there's flexible living spaces, which means that, if people are working from home, they want to be able to, decide where they're going to, do their office. And so there's a demand for a surging demand for flexible space, flexible layout, open space in your homes. So that way you have more flexibility as to where you want to put certain things, where you want to put the office or do your calls and so on. So it's, so if you got a house full of a lot of walls, sorry, I got something in my eye. If you got a house with a lot of walls, then you reduce that flexibility for that prospective tenant in terms of where they can work. Okay, walls, tend to define spaces. Openness tends to give you a lot more flexibility. Okay, so open spaces allows them to adapt to their preferences, their choices, and so on. Then the other thing is, considerations for the real estate investor. So what does that mean now for you and I? And that's where I'm going to spend most of the rest of this discussion. So what if people want flexible spaces? So what if people want, to live in different locations? So what does that mean for you and I? Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So what it means, first thing is that you got to do some location analysis. You can't just buy anything anyway just because you got a good deal. No. Those days, you got to be careful. Prices are going up, interest rates are going up, so you can't afford to buy wrong. And therefore, you need to do some analysis as to what you buy and where you buy it. Do you want to focus more on the suburban? Okay. Do you want to appeal to people who are moving towards a suburban environment? There's growth there. People are able to, get a balance between access to, a serene environment and also convenient access to urban centers where people work. Okay, so you need to analyze where you buy, and you need to get the right balance. In order to appeal to the client base that you're seeking. As I said before, I seek Section 8. And therefore, I've been through 5 real estate cycles, and for the most part, demand hasn't gone down. But if you're catering to another niche in terms of a tenant pool, then you need to be aware that people are shifting in terms of where they're going. So so be aware of that. Okay. And the next thing is commuting proximity. Ask people, how convenient is it to get from where you are buying to where the jobs are? What's the proximity? How do you get there? Is there public transportation? Are the road systems good? Is it easy to get in and out? From where you are to where the jobs are. Okay, and people are still looking for reasonable commuting distances. And so you need to be aware of that, especially if you're catering to a client pool that's going to be traveling from their home to where the jobs are. Okay. And then the other thing, which is kind of linked to this, I'm going to kind of go to, bring up some infrastructure. Typically, real estate investors, we don't think about infrastructure. What's going on in terms of are there any highways, interstates, major roads? Are there plans for that in the area we're thinking? Okay, is there public transportation nearby? Can we get in and out either by buses, by light rail, or by subway? Are there subway systems currently available, or are they being developed? Okay, these things matter in terms of where you buy. And are there any commercial developments, near to where you are thinking of buying? Again, as real estate investors, we get too hung up on, is it a good deal? Do the numbers make sense? Are our cash on cash returns, right? Does it, does it meet the 1% rule? On all these kind of quirky guru type metrics that the tenants, for the most part, could care less. They don't care if you're, what they want to know is that, does this house meet my needs in terms of me be able to get to where I need to go to? Is the rent reasonable? What's the location like? Is it close to shopping, recreation? I mean, that's what they care about, not your cash on cash return numbers or your NOI or, IRR and all these other things. Okay. So infrastructure is quite important, because infrastructure, what it means is that, the city, the county, the state are developing things, developing the infrastructure, which may be attractive to, to your prospective tenants. Okay. And therefore you may want to be aware of that, because that may, cause you to want to buy there. And I'll give you a little secret then. How about this one? In Washington, D.C., for example, transportation is very important. And I know for me, when I was starting out, I would try to buy in not too far away from the subway stations. But it's expensive. And so what I would do is say, okay, then, if I can't afford houses in close to this subway line, then maybe what's the next stop on the line further away? And I'll look there and see what prices are over there. And then I may, if I can't afford that, I'll go to the next line, the next stop on the line. So the idea is that it's expensive close to metro stations, subway stations, but at some point the growth, at least in the Washington D.C. area, follows the subway system. So if I can't afford something here today, I'll go to the next stop. Eventually, the growth is going to come to that stop. And so I'll be a little bit ahead of the curve. And that's infrastructure, okay? And I was cognizant of that, and I would be buying based on, on that foresight. I mean, I was lucky, but I understood the dynamics of the area where I'm in. Now, where you are, you may want to consider those things as well. You may not be where you are, it may not be all about the subway system or the roads. There could be other things that designate where the growth pattern is, and you want to follow that growth pattern. So hopefully you can be ahead of the curve, and you can buy, hold, and hopefully at some point the growth will follow you, and there you'll get the appreciation. Okay, so again, following the infrastructure and development will present some opportunities for you. Again, if we got some the Q&A session towards the end. So if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I will try to answer them shortly. And hopefully this is interesting. If I'm giving you some food for thought that you may or may not have considered as part of your real estate investing strategy. So again, put them in the chat box, and I'll try to get to them during the Q&A session of the Ask Dr. Joe. Home office space. What does that mean for you? If you're buying a house, people are looking for home office space. They want a place where they can, do their remote work. So what does that mean? It means that when you are looking for a house, you may want to sort of, be cognizant that they may want to put an office somewhere. I know that one of my houses, the kitchen area, or just off the kitchen area, we created the little desk area where you could, in theory anyway, do some homework. The kids could do their homework, and you could use that as a sort of pseudo office. But again, we plan that in, and you know, we don't know, but it was definitely appreciated by the tenant. It was a talking point and a selling point, which I used when I was showing the house. So again, people are looking for enough space for essential furnishings like desk, chairs, storage, and obviously, if you got an office, people like to have natural light, proper ventilation, and all those things which are really crucial and important for productivity. Okay, so home office space is something that you may want to consider when you are looking to, you know, when you're buying your next home. Outdoor amenities. Again, these are things that prospective tenants, prospective buyers look for. And you need to be aware of these things. What are the outdoor amenities on your property that you can offer? You know, because people want to spend more time outdoors. You know, gardens, lawns, outdoor seating areas. You know, these things are attractive to prospective tenants, and also they're attractive prospective buyers as well. Decks and patios, yes, that's another one. And decks and patios, you know, again, people like to spend more time outdoors, and even the patios. I mean, I have a patio where I live, and I use that patio as an extended workspace. When the weather's nice and it's comfortable, I like to go outside and fire up my laptop, get the Wi-Fi connected, and just work from outside, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the birds, you know, tweeting around, and you know, enjoying the mosquitoes bite me. That's it's, yeah, don't forget the bug spray, huh? And so on. Then I kind of talked about this again. These are things that we as investors need to be aware of, you know, when we are considering our purchases, because people are working remotely, and these are what remote workers are looking for. So, you know, ignore it at your cost. And but I think it's important for me to at least bring that up, and that way you can consider that into the equation. Open floor plans, flexible layouts. You know, people like that open floor plan I talked about, and they want to be able to have spaces that can serve multiple functions. You know, so you may be able to adapt a den into an office. You may be able to, you know, put one area as a potential home office, or a gym, or an entertainment room. So they want the opportunity to, that's what you call it, flexible layouts. You know, they want multiple functions for a particular space, and so on. So that, my friends, is that part. Then I'm kind of just talk about trends. So I think as investors, we need to be aware of market trends, what's going on. Before you start doing all this, I would strongly recommend that you do some rental demand analysis, I suppose. You don't want to go through all this and find out that, you know, people don't want it, or there's no need for it. So you want to analyze your rental market, where you are, your target customer group that you're looking to attract, and examine things like the rental rates, examine things like vacancy rates, examine things like tenant demographics. Who are these tenants that are looking to move into your area? What are they looking for? What are they not looking for? Where do they want to live? Where they don't want to live? Who do they want to rent from? Who they don't want to rent? I mean, all these things are important. Okay. And it's part of that analysis, and you know, understand the demand, and because that will help you cater and customize your product towards the meeting of the, you know, the needs of the potential clients, and also kind of understand tenant preferences. You know me, I cater to Section 8, and I took the time to understand what I call tier 1 tenants were looking for, what their preferences are, what their needs are. And for my tenants, proximity to desirable amenities, shops, recreation, transportation, a safe environment where the kids aren't going to get shot at, where the parents can be, you know, be not have to worry about, you know, what's going on outside. They can let the kids play and not be too concerned that, you know, drama is going to take place. These are things that, you know, these are tenant preferences. And the same thing for you. When you are buying, when you're trying to attract a particular group of tenants, you want to know what they're looking for, such that you can make sure that you make the right buying decision, but also you can, structure your property in such a way that meets the demands, or you're in tune with, your prospective customer. And then the other thing is competitive analysis. What's your competition doing? Other landlords, other investors, what are they doing? Because at the end of the day, when you put your house for rent, you're going to compete with other people, and you want to make sure that your product stands well compared to other people. So you want to do that competitive analysis. There is nothing worse. Believe me, I've done that, been there, done that. You bought a house, you rehabbed it, you spent all your money, you got no money left, you put it out for rent, and nobody's interested in making an application. So now you're stuck because you got something that people don't want. So you don't want to go there. I've been there. It's not nice. And that is the recipe for disaster, because what you're going to do is, in order to get an application, you're going to reduce your what's the right word? Your standards. And then you're going to start taking anybody, because you need to get money to pay your mortgage. And then it starts that spiral, the death spiral, where you just get someone in your house. It's not the best tenant, and therefore it's just problems and drama and chaos after that. Then the other thing I'll kind of talk about is the long-term viability. Is this remote working a fad? Is it something that's going to be lasting? Is it something that's here to stay? Is it worth doing all this? Because a couple of years, maybe all this thing has gone away. Fads come and go. Is this come and go a fad? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's been a fundamental shift, and I think people have tasted they drank from the fountain, and they like the taste, and they don't want to go back to the old days. So, but I mean, we don't know. So, so what you want to do is make sure you future-proof your investments. And how do you do that? You make sure that you focus on the fundamentals as well. What are people looking for? Looking for quality construction, quality renovations, energy efficiency, since most of the times they're paying their utilities, and also standard design, classic designs. I think that those things don't usually change, and that's something that you may want to consider as well, and also the resale potential of your property in the end. So, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up by saying conclusion. Also, property appreciation as well. That's something that you want to consider in terms of market trends and long-term viability. So, I'll wrap it up by saying that I think the remote revolution is here to stay. I think there's a significant shift in the market, and it's a significant shift for us as real estate investors in terms of what we do, what we buy, where we buy it, and so on, and what we do to get the place ready to attract the kind of tenants we're looking for. And I think it's going to be a growing need for certain things, certain amenities in your property. And therefore, I think the savvy investor is going to look at the location, where they buy, home office space in terms of understanding, what people are looking for, outdoor amenities, flexible layouts so they can kind of pick and choose what they want where, market trends. They need to be aware of the market trends. And also long-term viability. What's the long-term trends going on? And we need to stay ahead of the curve. Because I think if you're a savvy investor, which I know you are, you could be well poised to thrive in this ever-changing environment. I think savvy investors are looking for the long term. And whether it be 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 years, 30 years, we look at a long-term play. And I think that, we need to be one step ahead of the curve. And as trends change, we need to be aware of that and change accordingly. As taste change, we need to be aware of that and, adapt accordingly, and so on. So I think if you make informed decisions, then you'll be successful. And you'll ride out these turbulent times here and there. But I think over the long haul, you'll probably stand a better chance of surviving the challenging times between now and when you decide to implement your exit strategy. So hopefully today that was good. That, my friends, is it. It's 7:32, and I'm going to go to the Q&A session. Ask Dr. Joe. So if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I mean, the last few weeks, you guys have kept me on my toes. A lot of good questions. And so again, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me out at joe@joeasimo.com. joe@joeasimo.com. Shoot me an email. And again, put your questions in the chat box. I may do another event. I did one a few weeks ago. Very, very successful. One of my properties. I may do another one in October. We're kind of thinking about it, and I'll give you the details. It's gonna be a remote one of my properties again, and we're going to focus probably more on the landlording side. How to attract quality tenants? How do you select quality tenants? How do you move them into your home, and how do you manage that relationship once they are inside your home for the long term? So I'm going to kind of talk about that. How is it that I can get 5, 10, 15, 20-year tenants when other people are just getting 1-year tenants? Why is it that my average is 7 years per tenant, 7 years per tenant across my portfolio? That's the average. Okay, why am I able to do that? Where some people are just every year they get turnovers all the time. Why is that? That's what we're going to talk about at the next event I'm going to be doing, and share some secrets developed over 35 years. And hopefully, it's going to be education. And then we're going to do networking, where you can network with like-minded people. Last time was very, very successful. We had a great turnout, and I'm looking forward to possibly doing it again early next month, October. So let's go to the Q&A and so on. Let's have a look. Who got? Okay, my friends, what we got here? We got Ashish. Hi, Ashish. How you doing? And from California. Looking forward to this conversation. Well, I'm glad that you are here, Ashish. And please, if you got some questions, I think you do, I'll definitely try to get to them. Who else is here? Sherry. Hey, Sherry. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Please put your questions in the chat box, and I'll try to get to them as well. Hopefully, I'll see you again, Sherry. Let's have a look. Ashish. I have a home in California and a condo that I am renting out, but I want to get into Section 8. Can you talk about different loans that are available? I have around 50K to invest to start with. Okay, so let me repeat. So Ashish has a home in California and a condo. So I think that means you got two. You got a house and you've also got a condo, I'm assuming. And you're renting one out, but you want to get into Section 8. And can you talk about different loans? So, okay, so you have around 50K to invest. I don't know where you are, in which part of California, what's the average prices in your local area. California is probably like the DC area. It's not cheap. It's a coastal state. So, prices are not like in the Midwest. So you're going to need some money. And, depending on where you are in California, you may have some equity in either your personal home, your primary residence, or you may have some equity in a condo that you have. So you may be able to tap into some equity there in order to be able to, get the necessary down payments to purchase your next home. So let's talk about different strategies to raise that money, because I think that's where you want to go. The loan programs. I fund my acquisitions 3 ways. My acquisitions, renovations. One is I use money from banks. It could be, typically I use commercial lenders, but obviously you can go residential lenders. Commercial lenders tend to allow you to purchase the home in your entity, LLCs and things like that. Whereas residential, you typically have to purchase it in your personal name. Okay, so again, it's your comfort level. Commercial loans are a little bit more expensive. So there's 3 types. There's a residential financing. There's a commercial financing. You also obviously you can do hard money financing, and so on. So that's part 1. Part 2, I fund my deals is I have private investors, people that know me, like me, trust me, want a decent return on their money, and they borrow me money or loan me money, and I pay them back. As part of the process. So once the property is the renovation is complete and I find a tenant, I will then do a refinance, and then I will then hopefully recoup most of my money and then pay off my private investors their principal plus any accrued interest. And so I do that. And then the third option, or third way I fund my deals is my own personal money. Okay, so whatever's left over that I need to close the deal, I'll then plug it up myself. So Ashish, what does that mean for you? What it means is that California is expensive. It means that you probably, I don't know you, so I don't think you have $400,000 or $500,000 sitting around. Maybe you do. If you do, you're good. You use all that money. But it sounds like you've got 50K. So you're going to need to raise the other deltas some other way. And I would suggest that you consider residential financing or commercial financing or hard money financing, especially if the house needs some kind of improvements. With Section 8, going to the second part of your question. Section 8, the rent that you get is very much based on two things: the location where your property is, and then also the number of bedrooms. So if you can add more bedrooms, then you conceivably get more rent as well. I like Section 8 because I have some control over the rent levels I can get, and I found that because part of the rent is covered by the government, you're guaranteed rent. And most of the time, my tenants stay a long time. I spent quite a bit of time on answering that question, Ashish. If that was helpful, great. If you want some more follow-up to that, please shoot me a follow-up, and I'll see if I can get to that one. So again, good question, and hopefully I'll provide some context for you. Isaiah, hey Isaiah, how's it going, man? Isaiah is I think it's from Tampa or the Florida area, and he came up to the DC area at my last event. So it's great meeting you, Isaiah. Hopefully we'll get a chance to connect in the near future as well. Regarding financing, have you found more positives working with a mortgage broker or a bank credit union? The advantage of the mortgage broker is that they have access to lots of different programs. A bank, obviously, they can only give you loans that they do. And so you're kind of limited to whatever the bank offers, or credit unions. The banks and credit unions, let's have a look. There are different types of banks, obviously, and there are different types of credit unions. Credit unions, I haven't done too much business with credit unions. I know some investors who have, and their rates are usually a bit more attractive. Their lending requirements are usually a bit more attractive because they're smaller, and you can develop relationships with the principals, as opposed to a big box bank where you don't know who the person you're speaking to may not be the one making the decisions, or they're so far removed that they don't have a say. The underwriting is done somewhere else. So I haven't done too much of credit unions, but I do like smaller institutions. The banks that I use, the commercial lenders I use, they tend to be small local ones in this area, and they only do business in this geography. So I've taken the time to develop relationships with some of these folks, get them to know who I am, what I'm doing my business, the business model, educate them, develop the relationship, and such that when I make a loan application, I understand what they're looking for, and hopefully, what I'm looking for is consistent with how they're going to borrow their money, and therefore my loans usually get approved. So I think it's a lot to do with relationship building. What is closest to you? Where can you develop relationships? Can you develop relationship with a mortgage broker, with a local bank, or with a credit union? I would start there. It's at the end of the day, relationships matter. And I would start with a place where you have a relationship. So if you have a relationship with a bank or a credit union, start there. And they know you. And also, you already have a relationship with them. So it's easier to get in the door before going to strangers. But mortgage brokers, they do have access to lots of different institutions. And so there could be a good option. In fact, when I first started, I was working through a mortgage broker, in fact, to tell you the truth. And he was able to get me financing to do my deals that I did. So hopefully that was helpful, Isaiah. Hopefully I'll see you soon in the next event. Ashish, okay. How do you recommend managing when all of your rentals are outside state? Okay, so if you are buying, I tend to buy properties close to me where I live. I'm not as adventurous as you are, Ashish. But let's just assume that for whatever reason you've decided to purchase properties out of state, out of town. Then obviously you either manage it yourself out of town, which is doable, or you find people locally where the properties are to manage it on your behalf. It could be property managers, real estate agents, or whatever. You know, and before you do that, I will definitely do some due diligence on who these people are. They'll all will tell you, yeah, we can do it, no problem. Just, you know, have faith. I've tried that before. It doesn't work. People want to tell you what you want to hear. And, you know, some of these property management companies or realtors, you're just one house amongst a portfolio of 1,000 houses. And in fact, I was having a conversation with a property manager last week. And that's the concern, is how much time and attention will they give to your property? If your place is vacant, you know, I mean, do they care? You care because you're getting no money, but do they care? Because they got 1,000 other houses which they're looking over, which they're getting money from. So you could be kind of a small, you know, small fry in a big portfolio. So, you know, how much attention will you get? These are things that you're going to have to answer. Also, if you're going to give it to a management company, I would strongly suggest that you manage the management company. You set expectations. You understand how they do business. How do they screen tenants? How do they, you know, collect rents? Who's responsible for upkeep and maintenance? How much leeway will you give them before they call you? What's going to happen to the security? All these things are important questions that you're going to have to, you know, resolve and get to some kind of agreement in your management agreement and so forth. But yes, if you're out of state, if you don't want to do it yourself, then you're going to have to get some third parties to work on your behalf. I will definitely take the time and due diligence to find a quality management company. And you may want to, you know, get some referrals, get some people locally who can recommend. Go to a local RIA meeting, Real Estate Investment Association meeting, where people can give you some suggestions as to who they use, referrals. You get a bigger pockets. They have a forum. You can pose a question there. You can, yeah, maybe some people will be able to refer you some names as well. So I think it's a great idea. But proceed with caution, Ashish, and but you can do it. And but be cautious, because people will always tell you what you want to hear, and so on. Okay, DCC, listening from Houston. Hey, I think it's Fred. How you doing, man? Thank you for your weekly faithfulness to us prodigies, Dr. Joe. You're welcome, and hopefully, if I can be of assistance to you on your journey, I will definitely try to do so. My goal is to help people in, you know, build wealth through real estate and also make a difference in other people's lives. Okay. Ashish again. Oh my goodness. Ashish, you've put some questions today. Again, if you got some questions, put them in the chat box and I will definitely try to answer them. Any insights on DSCR loans? Okay, DSCR loans, that's debt service coverage ratio loans. These are commercial loans typically, and where the rent is based, or sorry, not the rent, the amount you can borrow is based on the ratio between the rents and the loan amount, the loan payment, sorry. And there's a ratio, the debt service coverage ratio. So the debt that you're going to collect in terms of the mortgage, and the rent that you're going to collect in terms of income. You know, different banks have different ratio requirements. Some of them are 1.2, some of them are 1.5, some of them are 1.1. I was talking to a loan officer where they have programs now it's 1-to-1. So if your rent is, let's say the mortgage is $1,000, they'll allow you they'll give you a loan where your payments are $1,000. Okay, that's a 1-to-1 relationship. And typically, if your loan is 1,000, then they want you to collect rent, let's say higher than that. There's a ratio, and that's what we mean by DSCR. It's a ratio between the debt that you're incurring and the rents that you are, or the income that you're going to be receiving. And different institutions have different ratio amounts. The higher the ratio, the less they'll borrow you. So 1.2 ratio means that they'll borrow you a certain amount. A 1.1 means that they're going to borrow you more. A 1.1 is going to borrow you even more than that. So 1.2 will borrow you X amount. 1.2, 1.1 is they'll borrow you more. And 1 to 1, they'll borrow you even more. So again, when you speak to a loan officer and you ask them what's the DSCR ratio that you borrow up to, and what are the terms and conditions of borrowing that money, it could be attractive. Interest rates are usually a little bit higher. So the lower the ratio, generally, it's a bit more riskier, and therefore they may up their interest rates a little bit higher. Again, it depends on the lender. Hopefully that was helpful. I was speaking to a national lender that was talking about they have some DSCR loans 1-to-1, which is very, very unusual. So I've got names of that one. If you're interested, just let me know. Shoot me an email, and I'll connect you with those folks. Okay, Isaiah, I just closed on a property in a HOA neighborhood. Hey, congratulations, and have a Section 8 place. Congratulations. I just learned that the tenant needs to apply with a HOA too. Have you seen HOAs discriminate against Section 8? Why does the tenant need to apply for this HOA? I'm not too familiar with that one. Normally, the HOA deals with the owners as opposed to the tenants. But if the tenants if they're requesting information about now I don't know if they're requesting information about the tenant as opposed to they're looking for the tenant to apply. I mean, what are they applying for? What information? Is this for a loan? Is it to be accepted into the community? I don't understand why a tenant needs to make an application. The tenant, the HOA may want to know information about the tenant. Who they are, how many people are there, and maybe terms about the rental agreement, whether it's a short-term rental, whether it's I know a lot of HOAs, they don't like Airbnbs. So I would understand why they would want to know about that. How long is the tenancy? Is it a short-term tenancy, or is it more of a long-term tenancy? But I wasn't aware that tenants need to apply to the HOA. I'm not too sure what that is. I probably need some clarification there, Isaiah. But so I don't understand that one. Why would they care? Because at the end of the day, they're dealing with you, the owner. If there's a problem with your tenant, they're gonna bring it to your attention. But I assume they want to know about maybe there's parking spaces that they need. Because I know I did have a property once where there was a assigned parking. And so they wanted my tenant's information such that they could give my tenant, a parking pass. And so the tenant had to go there and give their information, their name, the address, and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't so much an application where they could deny them. I'm not too sure about that one, but it's an interesting point though. But yeah, I mean, have you seen HOAs discriminate against Section 8 program? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of baggage associated with the Section 8. And when you hear the word Section 8, people, get scared. So what you want to do is to make sure you screen well, and you take the time to select the right tenant, and that you've done the necessary checks on them such that they're going to be a good community, a good citizen of the neighborhood. And also you want to educate the tenants about expectations in terms of noise, traffic, exteriors of the house. I mean, you have to educate them that certain things are just not acceptable. Certain things are just not tolerable. And you need to put that in your agreement, in your lease, in terms of what I call them, rules, house rules. You may want to do that and go through those house rules with the tenants before they move in, such that everyone's on the same page. And also what I do, I give the tenants I give the neighbors my telephone number, and that way, if there's any issues, hopefully they'll call me first before they call the HOA. And if they call me and say, "Hey, so and so is causing problems," blah blah blah, then I'll try to take care of it and address it straight away before they call the HOA, because once the HOA gets involved, it's usually it's not a good sign, and so on. Okay, good question though. Ashish again. I'm looking to invest outside California. Okay, no, good. Yeah, California is expensive, like we are here in Washington D.C. area. But if you want to go outside of California, I understand it makes sense. You can probably get more house for your money, and your money will go further outside of expensive markets than other places. So I understand, but it's still the same thing. If you're going to look outside, you still want to make sure that if you're going to have a third party manage it for you, that you manage the managers. Otherwise, they don't always deliver on what they say they're going to do. Okay, Tammy T, we got some good questions today. What's the time? 7:50. Oh my God, I got 5 more minutes. Tammy T, hi, Dr. Joe. I am on the fence in regards to long-term tenants and short-term travel nursing in my ADU. Okay. As a new landlord, which would you say is better? Hi, Dr. Joe. I am on the fence regarding long-term tenants and short-term travel nurses in my ADU. So Tammy has a house which has got an ADU, which is like a separate unit, and typically it's in the back of the house. And so she is deciding whether to go long-term tenant or short-term, like travel nurses, Airbnb, and things like that. Which is better? It depends, Tammy. I mean, that's the easy answer. It depends. It depends on several things. Okay. First of all, where you are, do they allow short-term rentals? That's the first thing. Does your local government allow that? I mean, New York this week cut it off. DC, they put limitations on it. A lot of places are clamping down on short-term rentals, like Airbnb, VRBO, and things like that. So the first question is, are you allowed to do short-term rentals? Now, travel nurses tend to stay a little bit longer. Usually 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, as opposed to 1, 2, 3 days, as in STR, short-term rentals. So you may be okay in terms of that. So typically, long-term rentals, obviously, by definition, the people stay longer. Short-term rentals, there's a lot more turnover, which means that you're going to have an infrastructure to address with that. If something goes wrong when people leave, you got to clean it, and you got to have a mechanism to advertise to get tenants and things like that. So there's a bit more work involved with short-term rentals and travel nurses than you do with long-term tenants. But you can get more money with short-term rentals and travel nurses compared to long-term rentals. So the cash flow typically is a little bit higher. Or can be significantly higher with short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. But there's a lot more work involved and a lot more management and so on. I have one property like that, but all mine are typically are long-term. I just want to get in, get the tenant settled and get a great tenant, and they stay forever. Almost like once they're in, there's an initial phase where you deal with any issues, but once things stabilize, you don't really need they don't really consume much of your time, to tell the truth. Maybe 15-20 minutes an hour a month. At least that's what I'm experiencing, if you have the right systems in place. So there are pros and cons. If it's a cash flow play, Tammy, then you're going to be much better off with travel nurses because you're going to get more money. But then again, you're going to pay your utilities. If it's long-term, you tend to get longer tenants, less management requirements, headaches, I think, and and so on. So it's kind of up to you. I personally, not just me, I just prefer long-term. I just want to get someone in my house. They're happy. They love being in my house. They want to stay forever, and they stay 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I don't have to worry about it. And 5, 10, 15 years, if I want to implement my exit strategy, I can do so and then move on. So, but I know there are people doing short-term rentals who love it. And so, as I say, there are pros and cons. And at the end of the day, it's what makes what you're most comfortable with, Tammy. Good question. You didn't tell me where you're based, Tammy. So let me know, and so on. Ashish, again, thank you for helping out, everyone. Okay, good. I hope I was helpful, Ashish. And definitely join us, in what's it called? Every Wealth Wednesday. I've never heard about tenants applying for the HOA. I've never heard of that as well, Ashish. I don't know, Isaiah. I would call the HOA and find out what do they want with the tenant information. What information are they looking for, and what are they going to do with that information? Okay, Ashish again. My goodness, Ashish is on a roll. What is your biggest learning so far from your real estate investing experience? I am sure it was nerve-wracking when you started. It sure was. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. My first house that I bought was a disaster. Every mistake I could have made, I made it. I had a tenant from hell, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just bought a house, and I learned everything about what not to do. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anything. So it was very nerve-wracking. It's very stressful. I plowed through it. I like the whole buy and hold strategy, and I wanted to do buy and hold. I wanted to keep these assets, and therefore I knew in time, property will increase in value. I knew in time that it'll seem cheap. So, and that's essentially how real estate is in this area. Is that whenever you buy, it's always expensive. It's always expensive. It was expensive 20 years ago. It's expensive 10 years ago. It's expensive 5 years ago, 1 year ago. But 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, you think, oh my God, if only I bought then when it was cheap. That's usually just how it plays out, especially if you're in an appreciated market. Because experience is hard. So what I would suggest is that looking back, take time to learn about yourself, what your strengths are, your weaknesses, your goals, what you're looking to hopefully gain out of all this. Pick a niche. You can't do it all. And, get some advice, get some counsel, get some mentor or coach who can help you avoid making what I call unnecessary mistakes. And at some point, you have to pull the trigger. You can't YouTube your way to financial independence. You can't, I don't know, you can't Google it to financial dependence. At some point, you have to pull the trigger. You got to buy the house. That's how you're going to do it. And you just have to learn. But if you surround yourself with more experienced people, seasoned people, successful people, I think that is definitely a major lesson learned. And that's the reason why I do this Wealth Wednesdays. One of the reasons I just want to help people. No hidden agenda. It's just that I've got experience, and I learned the hard way, and I feel that you don't have to go through the nerve-wracking, as you put it, that I had to go through. If I can help you anyway. Good question though. Oh my goodness, Ashish again. Any good areas that you believe are worth investing long term? It depends where you are. There's always good areas wherever you are. I live on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. area. I like this area. But there's real estate everywhere. And so it's where you're most comfortable with, Ashish. And, obviously, if you're interested in the D.C. area, I can give you some help there. That's where I own my properties. But you're in California. So I don't know if you want to go all the way to the East Coast, but there should be some good markets, not too far from where you are, whether it be in California itself or whether it be not too far from California. So I will definitely speak to other people, go to Real Estate Investment Association meetings, join Bigger Pockets, sort of forums, and see what other people, would suggest. And but long term, I think it's always good to buy in markets where prices go up, because it's controversial, but I think that the real money is appreciation. I mean, it's nice to get some cash flow, a few $100s here and there, but the real money is buying a house, buying a property. 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now is doubled and tripled in value. That's where the money is, in my opinion. And all you need is a few of those. And, especially if you can figure out how to get good tenants, you'll be fine. And that's what my main thing is. Good, Dela. I hope you're doing, Dela. Good evening, Dr. I sent you an email last week. Oh my goodness, Dela. Forgive me. I don't recall the email. Send it again, and I'll try to respond, Dela. To you. It is now 8:03, and yes, my county does. I'm in California. So yeah, okay. So it looks like you do allow Section 8 where you are, Tammy, and you do allow ADUs. Not Section 8. You do allow ADU. You do allow short-term rentals. It sounds like, so you're good. So I think you got some options for you, and I think whatever makes the most sense for you is definitely the way to go. But I'll definitely get seek some counsel between long-term versus short-term. I personally prefer long-term, but there's people that prefer short-term as well. There are pros and cons, and definitely I would weigh them up. Okay. Isaiah, sorry, I should have been more clear in my question. The HOA needs the tenant to apply to live in the neighborhood with an application fee, credit, background check, even though I've done this. Strange. Okay. So the HOA needs the tenant to apply to live in the neighborhood. You got to apply to live in the neighborhood. Wow. With an application fee. Why do they need to apply to live in the neighborhood? I mean, you are the one who owns a house. I've never heard that one before. And they have to do a credit background check. They have to do a credit. I thought you've already done that. So it looks like the neighborhood, this is weird. The neighborhood also has to accept the tenant. I mean, that to me is weird. I've never heard that before. Yeah, there could be some abuse there. But yeah, if that's what they want, it is what it is. But I would have thought that you would have found that out before you bought the house. And, and that way you went into this thing with your eyes open, as opposed to being blindsided after the fact. But make sure that they're doing that for everybody, not just you. If they do it for everybody, then, that's one thing. If they're just doing it for you because they think you got a Section 8 tenant, to me, that's discrimination. There's potential housing violations there. There's some federal statutes against that kind of stuff. I would definitely call the housing association, the housing authority, where you are, and run it by a caseworker and see if they're familiar with that kind of thing. Maybe they're aware of this and they can advise you how to handle that. But yeah, you may want to call the housing authority. You should have a caseworker for your voucher holder. Try and speak to her, or ask your try and speak to your tenant has a caseworker. They know who their caseworker is. So ask your tenant for the information to their caseworker, and then you speak to the caseworker, and they will tell you how best to proceed with that. Wow. Thanks for your help as always. I shot a DM on Instagram. Have a wonderful night, sir. Okay, same to you. Any plans for networking event in California? My goodness. Maybe one day. I was in California last year. I went to BPCon in San Diego. I'm not sure where California you are. I love California. It's nice. Who knows? Maybe we can do a networking event, Ashish. You and I and some of your buddies down in California. Maybe you can invite me over, and we'll do some stuff. Okay. Anyway, my friends, it is 8:06. It's gone beyond time. Hope you had a great day. Hope today was helpful. I'll see you next Wednesday at Wealth Wednesday at 7 p.m. So again, feel free to shoot me an email. And if you want to shoot me an email, you can reach me at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. We had a good session today, I think. You guys kept me on my toes as usual. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. I think I will be doing an event, hopefully in early October in the DC area. So if you're in the DC area or want to come down here, we're going to do an event on networking. And also we're going to focus on landlording, finding tenants, screening tenants, managing tenant relationships, and all that kind of different things. So listen out for that. Once we get all the information, I will let you know. So until next Wednesday, 7 p.m., have a great week. And I will speak to you then. Take care. Bye for now.